Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the meeting of the Cabinet of Staffordshire County Council today, Wednesday, the 19th of July, 2023. Item number 1 on the agenda, apologies for absence. Mr. Bradbury.
Good morning, Leader. I have two apologies, Mark Teville and Jonathan Price.
Thank you. Second item on the agenda, declarations of interest in accordance with Standing Order 16. Are there any declarations of interest? For the record, nobody's indicating. Third item on the agenda is the decision notice of the meeting held on the 21st of June 2023. Is it your wish I sign that off as a correct record of the meeting? For the record, everybody's in agreement. Fourth item on the agenda is Leaders' Update. Colleagues, keeping Staffordshire children safe and protecting them from harm is an absolute priority for all of us at the County Council. As we will discuss this morning, we are continuing to see more children and families coming forward in need of support. I cannot overstate the vital role foster carers play in looking after some of the most vulnerable young people in our county. We paid tribute to more than 40 foster carers in a special long service awards ceremony at the end of June, which was attended by Councillor Sutton, who's with us today. We need more people to come forward and work with us to offer loving, caring homes for young people in real need. From short breaks to long-term fostering, looking after children with disabilities or older teenagers, if you think you can make a difference, please do get in touch. The end of the school term is fast approaching. Help is at hand for parents struggling with the cost of living in the shape of the holiday activities and food programme. Once again, we've teamed up with organisations across Staffordshire to run fun summer activities, including a hot meal for 5 to 16-year-olds. The scheme is free to all children in receipt of free school meals and includes activities such as sports, horse riding, arts, crafts and more. You can register to book your child on a place on the County Council's website. Innovation is a key theme for the Council this year, finding new, better and lower cost ways to work and deliver results. One of the most creative and successful changes we've made in recent years is in our community-managed libraries. And it is not just how they are run, but what they provide to nearby residents beyond books and access to IT. For example, in Warrington, where they work with a local patient group and doctor's surgery, we have a programme of health events and activities delivered by local organisations. The work has seen 2 Warrington volunteers, Wendy Sambrook and Betty Johnson, receive the Health and Wellbeing Award at the prestigious 2023 Libraries Connected Awards. Many congratulations to them both, and thank you to Councillor Wilson for all the work you're doing with libraries. Elsewhere, we continue to work with councils and businesses to create the right conditions for our economy to grow, which Councillor White will talk to in a moment. This is to create more and better paid jobs for Staffordshire people. In the last few weeks, we announced the first occupier of the I-54 Western Extension in South Staffordshire, bringing 250 new jobs to the area. There was difficult news elsewhere, though, with the announcement that Amazon will be relocating operations from Rugeley, and we are working with Cannock Chase District Council and others to support employees and showcase opportunities through our Jobs and Careers service. The additional £30 million investment in our roads continues to gather pace with numerous schemes underway or about to start. This includes repairs on the A522 near Utoxeter, making use of our new JCB Pothole Pro, which members around this table will have seen earlier this week. It's fresh off the production line at the nearby factory at JCB. There's a £200,000 resurfacing scheme on the A34 Liverpool Road in Newcastle. There's an £800,000 improvement at the junction of Eastern Avenue and Grange Lane in Lichfield. But please bear with us whilst we make these improvements. I know it's frustrating when people get stuck in traffic jams and at traffic lights, but these are improvements that we're delivering for the people of Staffordshire so they can get around the place better and more safely. And finally, good news too on our efforts to reduce carbon emissions and achieve net zero by 2050. We've secured a further £10.5 million of the government's home upgrade grant to install free air source heat pumps and solar panels in low-income homes that are not connected to mains gas. The measures will reduce climate emissions and help people reduce their heating costs. We have also reopened our Climate Change Action Fund, now in its 4th year, offering more than £90,000 of grants to not-for-profit organisations, including charities, voluntary and community groups, parish councils and schools. Each council will have a £1,500 pot to award for schemes to tackle climate change or protect the environment. And if you speak to Councillor Tagg, he will certainly be able to give you more details, advocating for climate change at every opportunity. And so, ladies and gentlemen, we're now on to our next item for this morning's meeting, which is agenda item 5, Staffordshire Means Back to Business oral update, brought to you by the Deputy Leader and Cabinet Member for Economy and Skills. Councillor White.
Thank you very much, Leader. And as per usual, I've drawn a line through a few of the items that you've mentioned that were to be in my statement. So thank you for that.
So sorry.
No, that's the Leader's prerogative. So this month, I'll keep the update reasonably brief. But there are a couple of things that I do want to discuss. So the first of those is my usual update on the current claimant count for universal credit within the county. So this month, the total number, the percentage of claimants in Staffordshire is at 2.9%. That compares to the national average of 3.8% and the regional average for the West Midlands of 4.9%. So Staffordshire remains an area of happily very low unemployment versus the national and regional averages. Within that, we saw a small increase in the number of young people who are claiming universal credit of 55 additional claimants. So our youth universal credit level is at 4.6% compared to 4.8% nationally and 6.6% regionally. In terms of job vacancies, we saw a 4% increase during the same period, and that's versus a 3% increase nationally between May and June. So there are around 1.7 jobs available within the county for every person who is seeking one. The Leader mentioned in his introductory comments the news that Amazon are relocating from Rugeley to a site nearby, but over the border from Staffordshire in Sutton Coldfield. We know that Staffordshire is a hugely attractive place for the logistics industry, and we've seen many businesses making the journey the other way. Most recently, the relocation of Pets at Home's National HQ and Distribution Centre to Stafford, for example. And we do have to accept that sometimes a business, for their own reasons, will make a decision to move somewhere else. That is in the nature of the beast. So our priority is to make sure that the people who are impacted by that, who currently work for Amazon in Rugeley, have the full support of this council. Now, we have experience of doing this. We have had other businesses in the past who have looked to relocate out of Staffordshire. So we are well rehearsed in terms of what we do. So we have very quickly pulled together a working group comprising the County Council, the Borough Council, the Department for Work and Pensions, the local college, South Staffordshire College, and the National Careers Service to provide support to people who work at the site. It is fair to say that this is an area where there is high demand for employees. So although this is very concerning for the people who work at the site, and all of those people have the opportunity to relocate to Sutton Coldfield should they wish, we do feel confident that those who are not able or do not wish to relocate should have ample opportunities for alternative employment, and we will work very closely with our partners to make sure those people get that support. It does also illustrate the importance of the Staffordshire Jobs and Careers Service, which we've discussed in recent meetings, and that service that the County Council provides, linking local employers with local job seekers and local skills providers to make sure that they can take up the jobs that are available with a team of employment brokers, so there's a human being that you can talk to about that, is never better illustrated than by these events. And I'm very pleased to say that that service is now well and truly up and running and placing people into jobs in Staffordshire. The other thing that I'll mention briefly is our ongoing work around the A50-A500 corridor. Colleagues will remember that we commissioned Deloitte to produce an investment prospectus for the corridor, and that work is reaching its conclusion. It's a business-focused piece of work, so going from the ground up focusing on identifying the real needs of businesses along that corridor, the things that would help them grow. And we are going to be in a position to present that prospectus to government in the autumn. But I'm pleased to say, colleagues, that I was able to give the Transport Secretary, Mark Harper, a little preview when he visited Staffordshire a couple of weeks ago to look at various transport schemes in the north of the county. We handed him a summary of the work in that prospectus, which I received an undertaking from him would be avidly read both by him and his office. So we're already taking the opportunities when they arise to promote that with government. The final thing that I'll say is, as we're swiftly heading towards the summer holidays, I'd like to encourage everybody in Staffordshire to take advantage of our wonderful visitor economy, our tourism sector here in Staffordshire. It's worth £1.87 billion to Staffordshire people and employs over 33,000 people. And as that implies, there's an awful lot to do in Staffordshire, a huge range of attractions, many of them very famous, both nationally and internationally. But I will just remind people as well that we have a fantastic 30 family days out for under £30 campaign in Staffordshire. There are a huge amount of things that you can do that don't hit your pocket too hard. As those of us with children know, there's a lot of days in the summer holidays, so a trip to somewhere very expensive every day is probably not what you're going to do. So I'd encourage people to take a look at that. There's so many wonderful things to do in our county, and all the time you're helping Staffordshire people and putting Staffordshire pounds in Staffordshire pockets when you do that. Thank you very much, Leader.
Thank you. We have nobody indicating, so I'm going to go straight to agenda item number 6, which is Living My Best Life, a strategy for disabled and neurodivergent people in Staffordshire. Now, it's brought to you by 3 Cabinet members. One's absent, so that narrows that one down. Cabinet Member for Health and Care, Cabinet Member for Children and Young People, and Cabinet Member for Education and SEND. So that's Councillor Jessel and Councillor Sutton. Councillor Jessel, are you leading off, or is Councillor Sutton? Councillor Jessel, we're with you.
Thank you very much, Chairman. This is a joint strategy that's been developed between ourselves, the County Council, and Staffordshire and Stoke-on-Trent Integrated Care Board. It's been strongly influenced and co-produced by people living with disability and neurodivergence. We've listened to them, we've listened to their families and their carers, and the strategy will make a significant difference across all the age groups. And I'll ask my colleague, Councillor Sutton, to come in a little later. In terms of the strategy, it was considered by the Safeguarding Overview and Scrutiny Committee on the 15th of June and the Integrated Care Board Quality and Safety Committee on the 14th of June. So this is its last stage of approvals. The aim of the strategy is to raise awareness of the needs of people with disability and neurodivergency, both in educational settings, local businesses, and in the community. And to continue to establish the Disability Partnership Board, which will oversee the implementation of this strategy, and they will be meeting quarterly. To improve communications in both directions so that people with disability and neurodivergency can be heard and have a greater influence on the services available. To improve access to and better information, and to ensure that the whole person's needs are the key focus, and again to focus on what they can do, not what they can't do, which is so important in ensuring that they do have their best life. I so move. I'll move the recommendations, but obviously Councillor Sutton may wish to add.
Thank you for that. Quite a comprehensive introduction, and spoke to most of the points across it. Just 1 or 2 points I wanted to emphasise, and not only is this across the board with ourselves and with our health colleagues, but it's also all age and includes it's included young people and children across the SEND agenda at all. I think it's really important that that Staffordshire becomes a place where people living with these disabilities disabilities and neurodivergencies, you know, are taken into account, and they are valued and treated equally, and that starts with young people. From that governance perspective, it's been looked at by the Health and Wellbeing Board, and the Health and Wellbeing Board will continue to that going forward to see how this strategy develops. Thank you, Leader.
Thank you. Councillor Northcott.
Thank you, Leader, and congratulations to all that have been involved with this report. I'm particularly excited about it. I'm also quite enthused about the fact the whole approach is different in terms of the definition of what a disability is, from the Equality Act of 2010, concentrating on the definition of disability rather, for example, than taking the definition based about eligibility for particular service or illness. I'm particularly grateful for the fact that it's concentrating on the wider issues. Some disabilities and neurodivergencies are not always diagnosed. Some of them that are not visible. Not all people living on a day-to-day basis are keen for others to know about their particular disability. So this makes for a massive challenge going forward to reduce the inequalities, to make sure that everybody can experience things in a fair and equal way, because we acknowledge that disabilities and neurodivergencies can impact on people's experiences and their chances of achieving their full potential during their lifetime. So I'm particularly happy and welcome this report. I think there's a lot of detail gone into it, and how it's going to be addressed, and to set that message that we're here to listen to people's experiences, to listen to what they are enduring, the help that they need, and to signpost into particular areas that make a difference to their life and improve that. So congratulations to all those that have been involved with this. Thank you, Leader.
Thank you. I'm going to come back to Councillor Jessel to go through the recommendations, but before you get there, I do like the fact that the ethos that continues to flow through our strategies here is providing people the support they need to be as independent as they can be. It's about what you can do, and that's been our ethos for a long time now, rather than what you can't do. And I fully support that and endorse it, and I'm delighted to see it as part of the, I suppose, to use that hackneyed phrase, the golden thread that runs through this. Sorry about that, but it needed saying. But thank you, it's an excellent report.
Thank you very much, Chairman. I recommend that Cabinet approve the proposed Living My Best Life joint strategy for disabled and neurodivergent people in Staffordshire 2023 to 2028. I so move.
You've heard the recommendations. All those in favour?
Agreed.
For the record, that is unanimous. We are now going to move on to supported living future commissioning arrangements, brought to you by the Cabinet Member for Health and Care. So you're flying solo this time, Councillor Jessel, so expectations are high. Over to you.
Yes, thank you very much. This report sets out the timescales and the details for supported living recommissioning. The key drivers for change here are to improve the quality of the services and to improve contract management. Also to ensure that the security of tenancy, under the current arrangements, there are links between the service and the tenancy, which is not considered to be national good practice. And I can reiterate, this isn't a cost-cutting exercise. This is about ensuring that we get the best value for money and the best quality of service that we can provide. Currently, there are a large number of small providers on different contractual arrangements, leading to inconsistent standards, and that is what this recommissioning will set out. The report sets out the timescales, the 4 bands of weekly rates, which are based on individuals' needs, not on the hours delivered. And I think that is important. Work has been done with the users of these services, so we can pick up on some of the things that are really important to them. They have tenancies. where they live are their own homes, and it's to ensure that the people who provide the service respect the fact that they're working in somebody else's home. So this is an important strategy. Working with providers, we've ensured that the proposal is for a flexible framework that will encourage interest from some of the larger providers, but will not disadvantage the small and medium enterprises, which we're very keen to do. But it will, as I say, ensure the security of tenancy of people and that strengthened quality insurance and contract management. Legal advice is for a preference for contracts with a length of 5 years with the ability to extend to 8. This agreement will not include out-of-county placements because they operate in a different market and pricing structures. So we're not seeking for out-of-county services within this flexible framework, but that relates to a very small number of people. As I say, there has been a lot of work done to ensure that we've engaged fully with the users of services, their families and carers, and this has been supported by a consultancy called People2 to ensure that there is that independent input into this process. Happy to answer any questions before I move on to the recommendations.
I can't see anybody indicating, Councillor Jessup, but I would like to draw people's attention to the extensive community impact assessment that's associated with this report. I hope people will recognise, with the size of the community impact assessment report, the lengths we go to contemplate the intended and sometimes unintended consequences of the changes that we make. And it couldn't be more clearly set out in this report when you go into the depths of the community impact assessment, how it fits with existing legal frameworks, how transfers will be made, the impact on people's employment, the impact on people who are from protected characteristics. I think it would be fair to say that if you were to spend the time looking through that, you would say that pretty much all bases have been covered within that document. So whilst this is a sensitive piece of work and a sensitive report, I hope that people will draw some comfort from the fact that we've gone into a great amount of detail with the CIA to give people the comfort that they need, that we've covered those potential areas that could cause people difficulty. With that, Councillor Jessel, and nobody else indicating, if you could sum up and give us the recommendations, please.
Yes, thank you very much, Chairman, and thank you very much for raising that, because when you're providing services for vulnerable people, it is absolutely essential that you consider all elements and all aspects to make sure that wherever possible you've got all the various elements considered. I'll move the recommendations. They are that I recommend that Cabinet A, approve the commissioning plan for the procurement of a flexible framework for supported living care services in Staffordshire. B, delegate authority to the Director of Health and Care to appoint successful care providers to the flexible framework for supported living care services, and to award call-off contracts under the flexible framework for supported living care services as detailed in the report. C, delegate authority to the Director of Health and Care to extend the current dynamic purchasing system for contracting supported living care services up to the 1st of July 2025 to cover the period of transition to the new contracts. I so move.
All those in favour?
Agreed.
That is unanimous. Right, they say you can never get too much of a good thing. We're about to test that because we're back with Councillor Jessel again with the Deprivation of Liberty Safeguards Contract Award. Councillor Jessel, we are back with you.
I must confess I'm resorting to good old-fashioned paper because I can't scroll through my screen quick enough, so I do apologise. It's been discussed at this Cabinet meeting on more than one occasion under the performance reports. that we have found it very difficult to address the backlog in assessments under deprivation of liberty safeguards. We were anticipating that the new legislation would be brought in. That, however, seems to have been shelved. And as you know, I did write to the Secretary of State asking when the new LPS legislation would be brought in. I haven't had a response to that, but in the meantime we have to operate within this very bureaucratic, very prescribed process of up to 6 assessments by 2 separate professionals. In order to avoid unacceptable waiting lists for DOLs, deprivation of liberty, we will need additional resources. The report sets out the rationale for the need for external additional capacity. As I said, the current process is a very prescribed one, and therefore there is little opportunity for rationalising the process, but we are in discussions with other authorities to hopefully benefit from any experience and any ideas that they have where we can make it a little bit more efficient. I can confirm that the funding that's been requested of £1.5 million per year can be found from the health and care reserves, and therefore will not impact on the medium-term financial strategy. That's all.
Okay.
I'm happy to take any questions, but it is one of those things, particularly with the forthcoming CQC assessments, that we not only start to address the backlogs, which we already have, but we have a plan in place to further improve that. We're not alone in this within the national context, and of course within Staffordshire we have a large number of care homes, and of course anybody who has dementia, who has their freedoms limited for their own safety, there has to be a DOLS assessment, and that has to be repeated every year, so there is a high demand.
I think we would be unanimous in the sense that this is it's a bit of a nonsense, the deprivation of liberty safeguards arrangements as they currently stand. The government recognise that. That's the reason why they've created their draft legislation around liberty protection safeguards. We were given an undertaking that would be in place by now. That's the reason why we hadn't moved as quickly on the DOLs as perhaps others might have done. But it's not been forthcoming. So we find ourselves having to spend more taxpayers' money in order to deliver deprivation of liberty safeguards assessments, when actually there is a solution awaiting, and I would implore legislators to get on and make that legislation become a reality, because on the ground it's costing money where it doesn't really need to cost money in certain circumstances. So I can't see anybody else indicating, Councillor Jessel, having held your portfolio, I'll get there in the end. Having held your portfolio previously, I understand exactly the challenges that you are facing and the amount of money you need to spend on this. It's irritating, but it has to be done. And with that, Councillor Jessel, I'll hand back to you for the recommendations.
Thank you very much, Chairman. I recommend that Cabinet A approves procurement of additional capacity to support the deprivation of liberty safeguards process, and B, delegate authority to the Director of Health and Care to award contracts for this additional capacity. I so move.
You've heard the recommendations. Those in favour? Agreed. That is unanimous. Thank you, Councillor Jessel. Agenda item 9, we're on the buses. with the Staffordshire bus strategy. And before you get started, Councillor Williams, Cabinet Member for Highways and Transport, I'll just remind everybody who might be listening or watching that Staffordshire County Council doesn't run buses. For anybody who's in any doubt. With that, Councillor Williams, we are with you.
Thank you, Leader, and I'm very happy to bring this report to Cabinet today. This everybody will remember that in 2021, a Bus Back Better programme was brought out from government, which instructed all councils that they needed to look at a national bus strategy and making sure that all local transport authorities, I'm trying not to use any acronyms, Leader, as I know you don't like them, are not make sure that we are then being able to go into an enhanced partnership with bus services around the county. We did so, and we also produced a bus service improvement plan, which was submitted to government and to the Department for Transport for funding. It was £113 million. Unfortunately, we were informed that that was not ambitious enough, and therefore we received no funding, along with many other shire counties around the area. The reason for bringing this bus strategy here today is a simple one, in the fact that they are now revisiting the next round of bus service improvement plans, and we are looking to ensure that we undertake a full review to make sure that we fit into those bus service improvement plan criteria, so that we can apply for funding from the Department of Transport to enable us to do what we actually wanted to do right at the start. This County Council does not run buses, but we do have a role in shaping public transport provision in Staffordshire, acting in its role as a local transport authority. This role is one of coordination and support to Staffordshire residents and bus services alike. Through undertaking innovative marketing analysis of their markets and uses and enabling us to try to facilitate growth and patronage, the operators must play their role in developing the Staffordshire bus network. And we have done so working with them to try and engage with our public to do so. When it comes to normal users prior to COVID, we are now back up to normal levels, and in some cases, such as Cannock, we've actually increased the number of users. However, unfortunately, our concessionary fares still are well below the levels prior to COVID, and therefore this is causing some issues with the bus revenue grant, which we removed in September, and the fact that what we can pay to operators. Therefore, what we're actually trying to do with this report is to make sure that we look at how this enhanced partnership, which we are about to sign off, works with the bus services, how we can develop our bus service improvement plan, and therefore how we can then ensure that when we look at providing another application to the Department for Transport, that is actually favourably looked at. Happy to take any questions, Leader.
The Department for Transport marches up to the top of the hill last time with the bus service improvement plan, and when we got up there, we were told there's nothing to be had. That sets expectations running amongst the public across Staffordshire. I'd be interested to know what your sense is about this one, whether or not we're being marched up to the top of the hill once again. The second point really, and I'd like to hear your views on work that's going on with the operators to improve their marketing of the offer that they have. It is a little frustrating that, particularly with the sort of COVID time, injections of cash were put into the bus services, which actually meant that perhaps they didn't have to come up with decent marketing plans so that people realised what the offer was and that it was a good way to get to work, or it was a good way to go to a leisure activity. And then my final question would really be around the attitude of elected members within the department, who I think, my take on it is tend to regard the whole of England as somewhere that resembles suburban London for bus services, and it's not. The distances are far greater in shire counties, the usage is far less, and therefore applying a template to Staffordshire that might resemble, say, an inner London borough wouldn't necessarily work. So those three aspects really I'd be interested in your take. One, whether or not we're being marched up to the top of the hill again. Two, the marketing of the offer by operators. And three, the application of an urban template in a rural setting. If you're writing all these down, Councillor Parry's got some questions as well. Councillor Parry.
Yeah, thank you, Leader. A few years ago, when we looked at the level of subsidy that was provided to some of the bus routes within Staffordshire, we discovered that per route, in some cases, there were something like £10 in some cases, and I think in the extremity, £15 per route. So that means when somebody jumps on a bus and goes on a journey, the Staffordshire taxpayer dips into their pocket £15 to pay over to the bus companies to carry those people on that journey. And I think whenever you ask reasonable people, is that something you would want to continue with? Do you want to continue spending money on that kind of subsidy? Because I can't think of many areas where we would subsidise personal travel or personal gain in the same way. We wouldn't subsidise someone's food bill like that. We wouldn't subsidise someone's petrol bill like that, even if it was unaffordable. We recognise that travel is essential, but we have to recognise the geography and the complexity of providing adequate transport in a county like this. If there is a county or a rural environment that has an adequate bus service where local residents are satisfied and feel that it's an appropriate investment and that the service meets their needs, I would like to know where it is. Because if they've found the answer to this problem, then I think we need to know what the answer is and how that could be applied here. I don't think it's as simple as that. I don't think it exists like that. I think there are areas in Staffordshire where we can provide an adequate bus service, and there are areas in Staffordshire where it's almost impossible to provide an adequate bus service, even though it might be desirable. And that is because in some places car ownership is over 90%, and in some cases two-car ownership is over 70%. So trying to compete with that, which is what buses are doing, buses are having to compete with other forms of transport. I'm not sure whether that's something that we can chase down. Now, I understand people's frustration, and I've seen reports that have said, press reports that said or implied that we kind of left money on the table here, that there was available resources from central government, which we've passed over, saying actually we don't need that because, you know, we don't think there's a deal to be done here. And I don't think that's the case at all. I don't think Staffordshire has been slow in trying to get on top of this problem, and have repeatedly over the years tried to do something about it, have repeatedly tried to work with bus companies to try and improve things. But there's this margin erosion all the time where bus companies fail to grow their market, making the subsidy the only option for them, the easy option for them in many cases. That means the answer to every bus route is how much subsidy can we claim for this, or do we just remove it? And it's time, as the leader says, for the blame for this, in a sense, to be placed in two places. All of us for driving cars, one, and two, bus companies for not recognising that there may well be other options.
Councillor Parry, you're going to have your microphone changed in an endeavour to stop the hissing. If it doesn't work, you're going to have to go and sit in. You're going to have to sit in Councillor DeVille's seat. And I know by putting you in Councillor DeVille's seat, I'm at risk of you and Councillor Wilson misbehaving. Councillor Parry, can you just have a quick test?
Is that all right? Does that work? I think that's fine, isn't it? It feels fine. It sounds fine. I try.
Thank you, Leader. Hopefully not hissing. I think I always look at these reports and always look down at the climate change implications. I think this one is more important than ever. And just following on from Councillor Parry's point, I think people are using their cars because they see an unreliable bus service. They see a bus service that doesn't operate how they want it to operate, isn't seen as efficient, clean, regular, and something that they want to get onto. And unfortunately, that needs to change, doesn't it, if we're going to, because the positives of having a good bus service for people to use is that it gets cars off the road, therefore cuts, obviously, carbon emissions, and also helps us to improve air quality. We do have air quality issues across the county and on some key busy urban roads as well, which bus services could help to relieve if they were really fit for purpose. And yet in my part of the world, in Newcastle, we're going backwards, where we've seen the bus service and a campaign to try and revive a bus service that First Bus were removing. Thankfully, D&G have stepped in, which could be a short-term measure if history is anything to go by. And I think this enhanced partnership really needs to sort of focus on getting those key bus routes which people can use at the right time and enable them to, as Ian Parry says, leave their cars at home, use public transport, and hopefully improve air quality, so we don't then have to go down the routes of bus gates, of CASs, of congestion charging, because we can use public transport to keep that down. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Leader. Yes, and this is, in this country, this is a commercial activity. So bus companies are responsible for providing this travel option. Whether people want to use it or not is principally a matter for those bus companies in terms of how attractive they make these services, and personal choice in terms of how people want to live their lives. Our role is to be helpful, as we always endeavour to be, in terms of making people's lives easier and helping businesses to conduct their business. If we are to go beyond that at any point, then that needs to be a decision for central government. It's not something for local council taxpayers to subsidise. I think this report strikes a fair balance in terms of that, but I think it's just really important that we are crystal clear that this is a commercial activity. We are mandated to help those bus companies, but it is helping them. It is not subsidising them, and they do need to make these services attractive to people if they are to grow and thrive, unless government decides to go in a different direction, but if they do, that's a matter for them. Thank you.
Councillor Williams, we're back with you.
Thank you, Leader, and thank you for the comments and questions. And you're quite right in the fact that the last time that we went to put in the bus service improvement plan application, unfortunately, many of the usual criteria that the Department for Transport put out do not fit rural areas. And I've made that quite clear to the Minister actually personally when I met him in Cannock. And I've asked him to look at that as well as when we've been working with the Department for Transport officers. When it comes to bus innovations, we are looking and we are working with the operators to do that. However, remembering that we are looking to sign the enhanced partnership where that will then be a formal operational piece of work that will help them. We can actually work with them formally to increase and improve their advertising to increase patronage. However, I will say as to Councillor Parry, you're quite right about the amount of subsidising that has gone on in the past. But what we have to remember is the reason we do it is to enable those who are less able, those who can't have vehicles, and older people to be able to still have a good quality of life, to still get out and socialise, to still come in and be able to do their shopping in the right areas and look after themselves as best as possible. And as Councillor Tagg quite rightly said, we're also ensuring that if we can, that we are reducing the amount of vehicles, increasing our air quality and reducing the amount of damage to the roads, which we still have to repair after that one. When it comes to our officers, no, I don't think they've been slow. I think they've been doing all the right things, but it is the case, quite simply, where that we are in a position where buses have struggled and that they are, because of the reduced amount of patronage, because of what went on over COVID, they are struggling to recoup and recover from that. However, I think with being able to work with them and being able to then put in for some more funding with the next bus service improvement plan, if we're successful, that we will be able to make a real difference. Just to confirm, we have been allocated £1,327,673 by DFT to help with our bus service improvement plan, but we only get access to all of the money once it's refreshed and we finalise the enhanced partnership. The paper is also quite clear that the buses are only one part of this transport offer. This paper specifically focuses on that element. But as we do know, we also work with trains throughout the Midlands Connects, and we're investing in roads. We're also looking at walking and cycling infrastructure and providing those. So overall, I think this is the right thing, and I would therefore go to the recommendations if I can, where I recommend that Cabinet agrees to complete the process for the creation of an enhanced partnership that is to commence on the 1st of August 2023, in line with the previously agreed bus service improvement plan. And B, it agrees to the undertaking of a full review of the previously agreed bus service improvement plan in line with the Department for Transport feedback to enable Staffordshire County Council a greater opportunity and chance of success for future bids. I so move, Chairman.
You've heard the recommendations, ladies and gentlemen. All those in favour?
Agreed.
That is unanimous. Moving then to the Integrated Performance Report, Quarter 1, 23-24, brought to you by myself and Councillor Parry, the Cabinet Member for Finance and Resources. Councillor Parry, if you wouldn't mind leading off on this, I'd be very grateful.
Thank you, Chair. Leader. This is our first quarter report on progress of the Cabinet and the Council against our Council plan. This is our open and transparent report presented in public that shows how we are progressing against that plan. My own responsibilities around the finance, I think, demonstrates that we remain a stable, well-run council and that our finances are in good shape. Having said that, there is, in quarter 1, a forecast overspend of £8.2 million for children's services. We recognise that this is a highly complex and volatile service, and costs depend on the types of placements that are provided, and that's often a major financial challenge to the service. The service is taking strong mitigating actions to address these pressures as far as possible, and it will become increasingly in focus for the Cabinet to address the issues that are related to this overspend. We have a savings target of around £11.1 million, and much of this is based on potential savings in the areas of looked after children placements and adult social care accommodation. The savings are categorised into confidence of delivery, and currently there are around £650 million worth of savings that have achieved in the first quarter. But we've now categorised £6 million of those savings as low confidence, which is due to the fact that they relate to cost reductions in looked after children placement costs and adult social care accommodation-based costs. The latest capital outturn projection, which was in a weaker position in the last report, is now in a fully funded position. It is projected at £126 million compared to the MTFS projection position of £110.9 million, which is an increase of 13.6%. As I say, this is a projection is therefore happily a fully funded position. There have been movements across the whole capital programme, and there has been an increase this year, of course, in our highway schemes. The national context continues to be volatile, I think, internationally, with the consumer price index at time of writing 7.8, and we know that's been up and down since then, and the latest figure this morning showed a small increase of around 1% in inflation, should I say, rather than interest rates. Interest rates are now around 7.8 and have increased significantly since we set the budget last year. Overall then, Chair, I think we're in a reasonably strong position financially within the county. We have satisfactory levels of reserves, and we're still in a position to make sensible investment choices and decisions if we choose. So I think that's a reasonable position to be in and a strong position in our first quarter. If I may, Chair, I'll hand the baton back to you to pass to other Cabinet members for their commentary.
Start with Councillor Sutton, then Councillor Jessel, please, and then Councillor Williams.
Thank you, Leader. And quite a few of the challenges that we face around children and families have been highlighted. But to go into a little bit more detail, children in care, the numbers of children in care has not reduced as we were hoping for, and that's coupled with the increase in the complexity of the children that are coming into our care and being referred in general, and the placement pressures that we have in finding loving, stable homes for these children, or in being able to find places for them to come out of some of the residential care when it is the right thing to do. We also still have a few pressures around workforce, a little bit of a hangover from the end of COVID, something that's faced by all local authorities around the country, and the demands as well around the SEND agenda, particularly the requests that we're getting increasingly for educational health and care plans, and the massive increase in educational health and care plans that have been awarded, and the costs associated with that. Now, to address some of these areas, there are 4 extensive work programmes in place around the children in care, and ensuring that we look to get children out of care when that's a right and proper thing to do, back into foster care or into back home or with families and friends. There's a programme of work around the workforce to ensure that we don't need as many agency workers, around growing our own talent in-house, and that has been successful. But then, of course, being able to make sure that we maintain our workforce so that they've got an offer so that they stay. And thirdly, to embed the whole system approach to children and families based around the districts that has now been live for some time, and look at how that is working, and to be able to look at areas that perhaps might need a few tweaks going forward. And then the 4th area of work is around SEND, and that system that I've spoken about before. We've continued to do particularly well in our supporting families programme, the old Building Resilient Families. We have earned autonomy, and we're seeing across the board by the Department of Education and Levelling Up as being an outlier in a really positive way, and we are supporting other authorities in able to deliver that. So that is really good for Staffordshire. But of course, when we do that, we also learn things from other authorities. We've continued to support lots of vulnerable families over the period of time since COVID. This financial year, allocating £11 million to the Household Support Fund that provides food, support with energy bills, and free school meal vouchers during holiday time for children. Just at the right time, as I was identified earlier by yourself, Leader, the holiday and food programme is just about to start, where we will be providing with providers thousands and thousands of opportunities for children who are mainly in receipt of free school meals to engage in activities where a meal is also provided there, and the outcomes of that around development of those young people and being engaged with other people, their peers, is absolutely outstanding. And I've already arranged to visit a number of those providers throughout the summer period. Foster carers was again highlighted earlier. We had an excellent award ceremony where Our foster carers who've been with us for 5 years and more were invited. In total, 651 years of foster care provision, including a lady who'd been with us for 40 years. But we do need to work hard in able to encourage more foster carers, because that is a great opportunity for those children that do have to be in our care to have be placed in a loving, stable home. The rewards that foster carers get are immense, and of course what the children, young people get out of that, is equally as good, and if not more. So we will work hard to ensure that children are safe within the county and they have an opportunity for a best start in life. In the absence of my colleague Jonathan Price, he's asked me just to say a few things around his area of business in particular. During this quarter, the authority undertook the selection process for the free score presumptions of 2 new primary schools to open in September 2024. They are both situated in Tamworth, one on the development of Tamworth Golf Course and the other on the Dunstall Farm development. Recommendations are now with the DFE Regions Group, and a decision will be made as to the sponsors following the July meeting of the West Midlands Advisory Board. As previously reported, we are opening 2 other new schools in Lichfield in September 2023, the Anna Seward Primary School, the development refurbishment of the former Kingston Centre in Stafford, which we all know very well, is near completion and in preparation for St Leonard's Primary School to move to that larger site September of this year to provide places for the housing developments in that part of Stafford. Our school organisation team continues to work with developers so that we meet our statutory obligations and are able to offer first-class preference to over 75% of parents and carers where their children are starting school for the first time. Thank you, Leader.
Thank you. Councillor Jessel.
Thank you very much, Chairman. In terms of the health and care performance, there has been a stabilisation of the increase in adult social care assessments, but the demand is still 17% increase on pre-COVID levels. However, we're managing that well, and we are exceeding our target for the numbers of people who receive assessment within 28 days. We're exceeding our 80% target. In terms of occupational therapy, that has been a challenge with long waiting lists, but working with Midland Partnerships University Foundation Trust, they have done some redesign work as to how they deliver their services, and with additional resource, the plan is to significantly reduce that waiting list. It is something I'm particularly keen on, that people who need occupational therapy assessments get the right level of assessment, but get it in an appropriate timescale. In terms of rolling out further technology, Nexus are commencing a pilot for us with Fitbits, with people in their reablement and home care services, and with the aim of this being a preventative measure. And obviously we will be looking at hopefully the benefits of that to roll out to other areas. I'm delighted to say that we launched the Integrated Co-occurring Needs Pathway, which doesn't roll off the tongue terribly well, or the ICON launch, which is an initiative to support people with both mental health and drug and alcohol use issues. They often occur hand in hand, and this is a new initiative that actually deals with those joint problems for that individual. Professor Carol Black came to visit our launch and speak to users and carers of services and providers, and was very impressed. She wrote a lovely email to me saying how she'd like to keep in touch to come back in 12 months' time. Part of her talk actually identified that one of her roles is to get government departments to work together. So I was delighted to say, well, actually in Staffordshire, we do work well together, both ourselves and the local NHS, and actually if they gave us a commitment to long-term budgets, we could do even better. She took the point quite well. In terms of dolls, as a previous report, obviously demand remains high on that, but with additional capacity, we hope to address that. Safeguarding, again, there's been recent increases in number of referrals, but that is being managed, and that is a process, as you know from previous reports and reports to scrutiny and safeguarding committee, that we have remodelled how we deal with those referrals. One of the pieces of work that is a significant challenge to us is the impending CQC and Enhanced Framework Assurance Assessment. We've done peer review, we've done an assessment of our strengths and weaknesses, and making sure that we have a plan to address those weaknesses. We wait to hear when that assessment will come, when we'll get a visit. It's likely to be, I think, sometime between October and April this year. And obviously we're hoping to be as well prepared and have the documentary evidence, which is what they're looking for, to support the plans that we have and the level of service that we provide. In terms of block book beds, there has been a stalling of the rollout of that. We did well in the first few tranches of going out for block book beds. That obviously gives stability to us in terms of what we pay for those placements, but also it gives stability to the market in the fact that they have a regular income. The key thing is to make sure that once those beds are in operation, that they are used, and I'm delighted to say that we have 95% plus occupancy of those beds. But it has meant that our delivery of savings hasn't been quite what we hoped it to be, but those alternative savings have been identified elsewhere. Supported living, that has been the subject of a report earlier on today, so I won't mention that. Warmer homes, we were finalists in the Local Government Chronicle Awards 2023 and highly commended for a project. And I think it's fair to say we now have installed measures within 964 properties in the county, and we've secured an additional £1 million funding for the extension of this scheme, which runs now till September 2023. And this additional funding specifically supports low-income households heated by mains gas to help them improve the insulation of their homes and energy efficiency. Those are the key highlights. There is one other, which is a pet subject of mine, which again is improving quality. The percentage of care providers with CQC ratings of good and above is improving within the county. I stood up in full council and said I wanted to see the standard of care in care homes and nursing homes in the county improved. We were below the national average. We have invested further in our quality teams, and that is now bearing the fruit. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Williams.
Thank you, Leader. With regards to highways and transport, obviously following the winter period where we have to reduce the amount of work that we can carry out, we found that we had a higher number of category 1 and 2 defects than normal in April, especially around the Gailey area, which was quite surprising with just the sheer number. However, I'm really pleased to say that we are now not only back up to the percentages where we should be with carrying out category 1 and 2 defects, but we're actually above the national trend and the percentage, so that is really good news. As well as that, between April and mid-June, there's been 750,000 square metres of carriageway pothole prevention works, which equates to around 70 miles of carriageways, and that's already on the 50% of the completed programme for this year. On top of that then, we have also ensured, and especially from this administration, very conservatively and in the right way, we've invested 15 million per year, or £30 million over 2 years, into supporting more works on our highways network. We were also fortunate to have £2 million to be able to fund potholes from the 4.8 million pothole fund that came from the Department of Transport. This is on top of a £5 million investment for road repairs, which means to equate to nearly £40 million over 2 years already that we're putting into ensuring that we are doing as much of the work as we can. We're also progressing with our Highways Transformation Programme now that we've signed our re-agreement and a new contract with Amy, which is a really potentially, an absolutely brilliant system, which ensures that we can, each facet of what Amy is able to deliver will be able to be assessed, and that we can make sure that if it isn't up to the right standard, we can either make sure it becomes the right standard or we can go elsewhere. Alongside this transformation, we've also delivering many major capital highways maintenance schemes, including schemes at the A34 in Holmcroft, the A34 Walton Island in Stone, the A522 at Beamhurst JCB Utoxeter, and the scheme at the A521 Utoxeter Road Bride Bridge, which is also now complete. I think it's a really good news story with what's going on with the highways, and the fact that we've now taken delivery of our new Pothole Pro machine from JCB. I think this will add to our arsenal and ensure that we can really start to deliver more defect repairs around our county in a much more visual way, because people will see this machine. It's large, but it's very visual, and I'm hoping that people will see the difference. I know I've been seeing the difference, and members have been saying that to me. Thank you, Leader.
Thank you. Of course, that additional money you refer to is over and above the amount that we've already budgeted, and I think it's worth emphasising that. To other colleagues coming in, I'd ask you to keep your comments relatively brief, because we've got a hard stop at 11:30 for another meeting. Councillor Tagg, now, Councillor Tagg, I understand you were at number 10 Downing Street earlier this week. You haven't mentioned that. You haven't mentioned that to me or anybody, but I thought to save your blushes, I would mention it for you.
Thank you, Leader. And I took the train. That's just the most sustainable method to get there and get back, and was delayed, but that's another story. Trouble with the trains, just as there is with the buses. Looking at this, my area, I think it's really pleased to see that we're on track with Greens in this first quarter of the year, and a couple of highlights from me. We obviously celebrated a year of bringing our household waste recycling sites in-house, and also moved ahead with a permitting scheme that officers are now working on for starting in September. We've discussed that at Cabinet before. It's an innovation that will make the sites better for Staffordshire residents to use, and also help us to ensure we're recycling and reusing the waste that's generated in Staffordshire and not from outside Staffordshire. Secondly, we've extended the membership period for the Staffordshire Business Environment Network for another year. That will allow businesses to access carbon trackers, courses and carbon literacy training to help them, many businesses across the county, to enable them to have a plan to cut their carbon emissions. I think we really need to see SBEN, which is the acronym for that, to extend even further and help even more businesses. And then also our joint communications plan with the rest of the districts and boroughs across the county. A visible sign of that we've got a plan, and we're going out and trying to increase behavioural change messages in the comms around climate change, is that the giant carbon bubble has been bouncing around the county. Stafford, Newcastle, Moorlands, I think Tamworth are on the way as well. So really getting out there with a visible message of what carbon emissions and a tonnage of carbon means. And also that's supported by our team giving out messages, asking people to do our climate change survey, which you mentioned earlier. And also working closely with the borough and district councils, recycling and waste teams as well, to try and minimise the waste that goes into the system, so we can obviously cut the amount of carbon of then shuttling that around the county to be processed and to be recycled. And then lastly, just on, again in my portfolio, is the Project Gigabit, which is number 29 in the report. I think this ties into what Julie was talking about of residents accessing, you know, IT possibilities for care and use of, you know, information, modern technology and AI, for example. We are still rolling out that project through an open market review, working closely with the government body that has overseen that. And of course, that's we talked about we didn't manage bus services early. We're not implementing Project Gigabit ourselves. We're actually enabling it for the private sector to come in, and that's what the open market review is all about. But in this quarter, we have connected more homes that are disadvantaged and in the rural areas to faster connections, and that programme is rolling forward now. So more and more people are coming online. I think it helps with them to work from home doing their businesses, also to use the internet for shopping purposes with fast connections, and also if they need some care, to use the most modern technology that we can to enable them to get that, which saves the county council money, but also provides a service that we can monitor and use the latest technology, as I say, to implement. So that's my update. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Wilson, if you could keep your comments relatively brief, and then we'll go back to Councillor Parry for summing up and recommendations, please.
Yes, thank you. I'll be as brief as I can. We have a delivery and finance RAG rating of green for my portfolio, which is testament to the great work that we have here as officers and to the decisions that we make in this cabinet and this council. Some of the things I'll pull out are the countryside estate. We're working on the redevelopment of Chasewater Innovation Centre in the South Shore to establish Chasewater Centre as a regional visitor destination, as well as the Cannock Chase Visitor Centre as well, where we're looking at a major upgrade of some of our facilities to provide a really environmentally friendly, high-quality visitor offer, and to rebrand and revitalise the Staffordshire Way as well. Our library service, which, as you know, I believe to be the jewel in the crown of this authority, is offering welcome spaces. We're doing Green Libraries Month and all manner of other initiatives to reach out and engage with the community. We're doing a community strategy, as you know, which we've shared some draft proposals of that, and that scoping work will continue. You're aware that the History Centre, the construction for that is still on track, in spite of some difficulties that we had early on, and we're looking to see that come to fruition next summer. And the reading challenge, as you know, Ready, Set, Read, that's arrived at the library now earlier this month, and that's free to take part, so we're after anyone that wants to join us. Last year we had 75% of children taking part actually improved their reading skills, so that's a really good news story. The only area of concern, if I have one really, is to do with trading standards, which managed to seize 243 calves from a farm at the end of March, and unfortunately that's causing us some cost implications in terms of feeding them and looking after them safely. But we are working with DEFRA and with Westminster to try and lobby ministers to see what we can do to receive some funding for that. But otherwise, very happy with what we're doing, and it's a green RAG rating just at the moment, Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Parry, if you could sum up and give us the recommendations, please.
Just very briefly, based on all of the good work that's been and the challenges that have been addressed that we've heard about this morning, it's interesting to see on Appendix 4 of the report, the line by line of all of the budget areas of the council, how every one is forecast to be on budget by year end, with the obvious exception of the area that we know we have some additional challenges that we are still working on and addressing. But I think that's a remarkable achievement of sound budgetary management and control, and I would like to congratulate corporate leaders, budget holders and our Director of Finance, as well as Cabinet colleagues, for all the hard work that goes into making sure that we are a very well budgetary controlled council, and therefore financially stable. So on behalf of the leader and myself, I therefore recommend to Cabinet that Cabinet notes the challenge and challenges performance and advises of any further action required. I move.
Ladies and gentlemen, you've heard the recommendation. If all those in favour?
Agreed.
That is unanimous. The final item on this morning's agenda, and it looks like it's going to be perfectly timed here, is the Treasury Management Report for the year ended 31st of March 2023, brought by the Cabinet Member for Finance and Resources. And for Councillor Parry, it's been an interesting year in terms of the money markets, interest rates, and a whole host of other economic factors that may well play a role in the Treasury management circumstances that we face. So be delighted to hear your report. Any questions to the end, please, and then to the recommendations.
Thank you, Leader. I'm so pleased to hear a positive introduction to the Treasury Management Report. This is the Treasury Management Report, which is an historic document now, in a sense, because this is the report for last year of the financial year ending 31st of March 2023. So some of the stuff that I'm going to be describing is what's happened in that year, but we are required to publicly report on our Treasury management for that period, for the year ending 31st of March 2023. As the Leader says, the external context, the macroeconomics setting, if you like, for the way we the way we do our banking, really, which is the thing I always say about this. This is how we handle our cash, our loans, our borrowing, etc., to make sure that we have, again, a secure footing for all of that. But it's, again, as the Leader has said, set against a global situation which has seen volatility across money markets, interest rates, inflation, war in Ukraine, and other global pressures, which means that in the UK, the government and the Bank of England had to take steps to tackle things like rising inflation, which peaked at around 11.1 in October, but it happily is now slowly falling back. In terms of our context then, our Treasury management strategy for the previous year, 2021-22, stated that we would continue to use internal cash instead of borrowing, and as in previous years, this has followed on in the following year, the 2022-23, and therefore we've used from internal cash balances an additional amount from £99.2 million up to £102 million during 2022-2023, meaning an overall use of our internal cash resources has increased. In terms of interest rates, we know those have increased considerably, and the impact is felt across the economy, particularly in personal household budgets, but also in the budgets of the County Council. The Council is therefore should avoid new loans at this time until we've seen a stabilisation of that, and we will continue therefore to use cash instead of borrowing. But this, of course, means that we depend upon the availability of cash within the Council, and paragraph 24 of the report shows that the Council had sufficient funds during this period, and therefore, by using cash instead of borrowing, made a potential saving, comparative saving, if you like, of £1.7 million, which is a significant and useful saving for the Council to make. When we first started the strategy, it was around £500,000 a year in terms of savings, and that's risen, as we see now, to £1.7 million. In terms of loan rescheduling minimum revenue provision, which we're required to set, this is in accordance with the policy, and Council paid £20.44 million of minimum revenue requirement provision, as stated in paragraph 32. During the year, the Treasury Management Panel, which is chaired by our Director of Finance, met monthly to review our Treasury activity. This ensures that issues, particularly in a volatile operating environment, such as inflation and interest rates, etc., could be kept under review, and that actions could be considered to protect the Council's assets and ensure the security of our funds. Credit ratings for all investments were therefore monitored throughout the year. The council earned around £9.3 million in interest, with an average rate of return of 2.2%, as shown in paragraph 55 of the report. And a list of the investments held by the council and their ratings are shown in paragraph 58, and this stood at £424 million. Prudential indicators for 2022-23 are shown in Appendix 4, were all compiled except with the variable interest rates, which were exceeded due to levels of grants and cash received in forward funding over the next 3 years. That's a summary of my report, Chair. I will switch around. My apologies. I've got it. So, I therefore recommend the Treasury Management activities for the year ending 31st of March 2023, including the prudential indicators outturn detailed in Appendix 4, be noted, and B, Cabinet note and approve the use of the minimum revenue provision at the 31st of March 2023 for £20.441 million as set out in paragraphs 31 and 32. I therefore move.
It is recommended. All those in favour?
Agreed.
For the record, that is unanimous. The next item is final item is agenda item 12, the forward plan of key decisions. Members will note, and those people looking on, that there is no Cabinet meeting in August. I'm always very keen to try and give Cabinet a break and senior leadership team a break in August. This job is relentless, and I think having that opportunity just to pause over the summer break to catch your breath is very, very important. Thank you to officers for facilitating that request. I do appreciate it, and I'm sure Cabinet members join me in that. So the next Cabinet meeting is the 20th of September. In public, strategy for special provision brought to you by the Cabinet Member for Education and SEND. In private, Burton Regeneration brought to you by the Cabinet Member for Communities and Culture. In public, Staffordshire Climate Change Adaptation Strategy brought to you by the Cabinet Member for Environment, Infrastructure and Climate Change. Again in public, the Recommission of Shared Lives brought to you by the Cabinet Member for Health and Care. Again in public, Children and Young People's Programme Framework brought to you by the Cabinet Member for Children and Young People. In moving forward to October, in public, the Integrated Performance Report, Quarter 2, 23-24, brought to you by myself and the Cabinet Member for Finance and Resources. In private, in October, Nexus Trading Services Limited Annual Report, brought to you by the Cabinet Member for Commercial Matters and the Cabinet Member for Health and Care. Moving forward to November, we've got the Staffordshire Employment and Skills Strategy brought to you by the Deputy Leader of Council and the Cabinet Member for Economy and Skills. That concludes the forward plan of key decisions. Ladies and gentlemen, that concludes this morning's meeting. Thank you very much indeed. Have a good afternoon.